video about this test that was done on a group of college students. They were offered free beer, and they came into this bar, but what they didn't know is that some of them would get beer and some of them would get a non-alcoholic beer, and the people who got the non-alcoholic beer got drunk. So they kind of proved it, that it's all in here, it's all in the way you perceive it, and through and like Dr. Peebles says, through your choices and perceptions, you do indeed create your own reality. And people go, well, why would I create this reality? I hate this world and everything else. Well, you're creating a reality of a world that you hate. You can love this world equally as much as you can hate it.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood Taoist master, San Qing, and I am so excited for this conversation today. I want to welcome to the podcast Summer Bacon, who is a trance medium and, quite frankly, an OG, a mystic, a most powerful wisdom teacher, bringing these transmissions into considering it's a deficient deficit of planet Earth that needs to be enriched with this unification. Welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you so much, son. I'm excited to be here. It's really nice to get to know you.
Yeah. We're just having a little brief chat before we got on, and there's just so much for you to share with the world, and I'm just very grateful that I have some time with you today to go deeper into your wisdom teaching, your understanding, and the path that you've gone on to acquire that. I'm assuming that you have many conversations with the origins of your teachings, but I would just love for you to just share a little abbreviated version, because this always happens for me. I get a lot of people interviewing me, and then they want to hear the origins, and then we don't get to anything else. It's like I've got 40 videos where you can hear the origins of how I ended up here. How about we get to some other things that are presently more valuable, other than the present moment, if you know what I'm saying. So that's for you to decide how you present that to the audience. So I'm very excited to have you here, mate.
Okay. You're asking a Gemini to put it in a nutshell. Let's see.
Yeah. However you look, we can go with it. I will spend as much time as you like, but I always get a little. It's like everyone always wants to hear. Okay, hear the origins, and it's such a bizarre thing for all of us. But we start telling the story, and then there's 40 videos of us telling the story about how we ended up here, and then it ends.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. And, this is the way I live my life. This is me. It's who I am. It's what I do. I can't get away from it. You can't quit your calling, basically. And I was very, very young when I first had my first experiences of knowing that there were spirits around me in the room. I could hear spirit, feel spirit, see spirit. I knew things in advance of them happening. I saw air. That freaked people out when I told them I saw air, but I thought everybody saw air. I thought that was just a norm. And I have to say my vision is excellent. I have excellent vision at 64 years old. I still do. And I still see air. So it's not a problem with my vision that I see air. And then I met Dr. Peebles through Thomas Jacobson, a trance medium. And when he quit, I wanted to know that Dr. Peebles was real. I really wanted to know it tangibly, and that's why I ended up doing what I do, but I never intended to be this trance medium out in the world making money doing it. I don't like that part of it, but you can only do so much in a given day. And I was doing graphic design. I had a graphic design company for 10 years, and I was working sometimes 16-hour days, and I had 2 small children and a stepdaughter, and I was a trance medium, and I was doing it for free for 3 years for anybody and everybody who needed it at the drop of a hat. And finally, I realized I couldn't keep doing it like that, and I tried to get just a regular job. And after I got divorced, and my graphic design business no longer existed, and then when I tried to get a regular job, it didn't happen. So I got kind of cornered by the universe because I had to keep the electricity on. And I had children to feed. And so somebody said, why don't you do an open session and channel Dr. Peebles and charge $15 per person, and everybody gets to ask a question. And that's why I do it as a profession, because I've just been cornered. But I've discovered you can't quit your calling either. You just can't. It just doesn't work. The universe will not support me in working for Home Depot. It just won't, darn it.
It kind of sounds, your story sounds a little familiar, that different Paul Selig. Are you familiar with Paul?
That name sounds really familiar. Yeah.
He's an incredible channel also, and he has a similar story. It's like, I can't, I was down to pennies, and I'm channeling, and then I just wake up years later, and I'm living in Hawaii, and this is what I do. It just is what it is.
Yep. It was quite something when I first started channeling, and I was channeling dearly departed loved ones. That was part of my training as to how to release my body and surrender to any perspective that needed to come through, not necessarily all the light, love, and all of that kind of a perspective. Sometimes other perspectives that needed to be discussed so that the people that I was channeling for could heal. So sometimes I would channel dearly departed loved ones who were sometimes not very nice and still weren't on the other side and had not lost their personality. And but in this one case, there was a man who came through. It was weird. This woman called me, and she just wanted me to do a psychic reading, basically. And this was one of my first experiences of realizing that there were people on the other side who wanted to speak, And this guy, I said, I believe it's your husband who's here, and he committed suicide, because he's showing me this big shotgun that he used to commit suicide. And she said, yes. And I said, and he wants to show you that where he is now, he's got all these posters of muscle cars, and he's looking really buff and really, really good, because, she was like probably in her 70s or something like that. And he looks very youthful again, kind of like James Dean. And she said, exactly. She said, that's exactly who he was. So, so there was that kind of a channeling thing, going on, that it started out like that with the dearly departed loved ones and everything. But then, later on, it was funny, the same woman who I channeled for, it was about 3 years later, and that was when I was cornered financially to eventually do this for a living. And I had nothing. I had nothing. I was so broke, and I was so scared. And I had $10.35. And I went out to the parking lot. It was raining in Sedona. And I was in front of the grocery store. I said, God, I said, this is all I have. I'm going to go in. I'm going to buy hamburger helper and a bottle of wine and some milk for the kids. I said, this is all I've got. I said, please throw me a cookie. And I went to the store, and I bought all that stuff. We were going to have a feast. Darn it. If, we were going to feast on that money. And my electricity was going to be turned off the next day. And I got home, and I checked the mailbox, and out of the mailbox, is this letter from the woman that I had channeled, her husband who committed suicide. Thank you so much for what you did for me. It helped me so much in my life. And she sent me a $300 tip, and it kept the electricity on and everything else. It was so amazing. It was so beautiful, and that was kind of the beginning of it, where I thought that was really knowing, the universe does support you when you're open to it. And, this is funny. I just heard this just now. I literally just heard the words, yes, and it happens when you value yourself enough to receive it.
Right.
Literally, I heard it just come right in. I don't know who said that, but it was beautiful.
Well, it seems to be a common thing. This is some of the things that I always teach my students, and have for decades, is they approach healing with a sliding scale. And they approach healing with, they must submit to the idea that I shouldn't be compensated for what I'm doing because it's a form of divinity. Yet the truth is, what you're transmitting is returning people to remembering their whole. This is a healing. So the frequency that you are transmitting instantly is acquired by someone who's deficient for whatever they're experiencing. And they go, holy moly, I remember this. I am home. Whatever you are teaching, that surge that we're getting right now, the union we're having right now, the physical feeling that we're having, which is expansive because we both recognize this is the truth, is the power that people have. And that remembrance is something that everyone's looking for. And that's love. That's unconditional love and acceptance, which is right back to that sentience and that empathy we're speaking of.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, you remind me of when I did this work in the early days and channeling the dearly departed loved ones, and I didn't charge for 3 years or whatever. I mean, hundreds of people that I did this work for. And it was so rewarding. I mean, just, it was so rewarding to have that kind of union with these people. But people have a need to give back. And so I received so many gifts of some things I couldn't even use. One woman gave me this really great mirror. I didn't have a full length mirror, so it was really cool, and it was a really good quality mirror. I would come home from running errands, and I'd find bags of groceries on my doorstep. Thank you so much. And it was really interesting, to have that kind of beautiful support and everything. Because I never asked for anything. I never asked for a donation. I never asked for anything in return, because it was just so rewarding in and of itself. It was so much fun, to watch people's lives transform and hear their stories and all of that. I loved it. And for me, the financial end of things sort of takes away some of the joy in some respects. But at the same time, I could not do, 16-hour days of graphic design and all that stuff forever. And then when I was a single mom and everything, I had to do something. And I can see how it, it broadens the reach in some ways, I guess. But the business aspect of it is not necessarily something that I really care about. People are like, "Oh, you need to charge more." It's like, "Oh God, please don't say that."
Well, I think you're bringing a good point, and it's something that I really hit home for most of my I mean, I've got students that have got like degrees in this, that, something else, academic accolades that are 5 miles long. They've invested in their mastery from an academic level, whether it's a doctor of medicine or a doctor of Chinese medicine or an Vedic healer or a Qigong master, a light healer, a chiropractor, whatever. All these people come to a crossroads, right? What is the most potent pillar for Chinese medicine or healing within an Asian sort of philosophy is energetics. There's nothing more powerful than that, right? Exactly. You and I understand that. This is what you do. This is your innate divinity that is the presence of who you are. Even you're speaking and you may not be consciously, aware that you're transmitting, you're always transmitting. And it affects the electromagnetism in the space because this is a unified divinity. This is the evidence of divinity within a polarizing material state. We are seeing wholeness and you are transmitting it. And it helps people remember. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, still are not selfish enough. And they're like, whoa, yo, Jifu, what are you saying selfish? When you're selfish, you become selfless.
Yeah.
And this is what we call the sacrifice within Taoism. And it's like, whoa, that sounds a little, I don't want to die. It's got nothing to do with that. But once you truly allow yourself to be whole, my goodness, it just the floodgates, which you're sharing this story of this, and it continues to repeat itself.
Yeah, well, and Dr. Peebles has said, it's not about being selfish or self-centered. It's about being centered within yourself.
Right.
Because people are trained from birth not to be selfish, not to eat the biggest piece of cake. Well, why not? Why not? I mean, maybe you want the biggest piece of cake and everybody else doesn't. So maybe you're being kind of selfish in saying, "Oh, well, I need to do it this way so that, I'm pushing all this stuff onto you." And now somebody goes, "Oh, now I've got the biggest piece of cake and all I wanted was a sliver." And if you're true to yourself, it's not selfish. It's not anything other than just being centered within yourself. This is who I am. It's what I do. People have judgments about things, of course, what I do as a trance medium. I got an email from somebody who shocked the heck out of me. Just one word. This woman had written me all these beautiful letters for 4 years, Thank you for what you do. It's been so amazing, so eye-opening. Da 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 da. One morning I wake up and there's one word, Satanist. And I was like, wait, what? And part of me just wanted to say, yes, you are. You know, because it's like, wow, that was bizarre, you know. And
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people. I was going to say, I think people get this distorted view because they are being run by something a low frequential state. So when they have the evidence that you transmit this divinity, they have a crossroads. So they're either embodying and moving towards the light, as you would put it, or they're having to look at their stuff and go, "Holy crap! The frequency you're transmitting would appear at face value that this is about me. No, 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 no. You're the problem. This is why I feel all icky and I feel like crap because I'm experiencing a frequency that is bringing this to my attention, and I cannot escape it." And it's kind of like, oh, now we're getting to see who's looking back in the mirror.
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. That's fair. I think that's well stated. Really, it's it's so interesting to see how people respond to certain things. You know, there's a lot of judgments that people carry about all kinds of things. Just food, what you put in your mouth. People will judge you for what you put in your mouth. It's like, really, you know. I love champagne. And I want like one particular cheap brand of champagne, and that's what I like. I make no excuses about it. And it's like, well, you know, you shouldn't drink champagne. It's like, because why? You know,
Right.
I don't understand. There was a guy who came up to me many years ago at one of my open sessions, and afterwards, he was a young man and very sweet, you know, but comes up and touches my knee and says, you know, because I think I was talking about how much I love cheese. I love cheese.
Right.
And he goes, you know, if you would stop eating cheese, it would probably make you an even better trance medium. And I was like, wow. So my God is cheese now. This piece of, you know, delicious brie or blue cheese outside of me. If I take that in, it's going to destroy my spirituality. I'm giving my power to that. It's just, it boggles my mind, you know, but and so I have learned, and thank God, through this process of channeling spirit, I've learned about my own judgments about people and things. You know, really has taught me about my own stuff. And I finally realized, hey, people are just who they are. Channeling dearly departed loved ones helped me to walk in so many different people's shoes, because I was very much more close and aware of the process. I was like a puppet. I could feel them moving my body around. I could hear the words they were speaking. And sometimes I was very judgmental about them because if they weren't very nice or something like that. But then I could feel from the inside out. I had the opportunity to experience these spirits from the inside out as to what made them tick and why they did the things that they did and why they were the person on earth that they were. And all of a sudden, all of my judgment and anger and resistance and everything else just melted away, because it's like, oh my God, you poor baby, come here and get a hug. You know, it is just like, yes, I want you to speak. I want you to heal. Talk to your family members about what you need to talk about together, edited by me, you know, because that was the most loving thing I could possibly do to help these spirits. Some of whom were trapped. I mean, and at the end of the conversation with their family members, were finally released and finally able to move on. But it taught me about a lot of my judgments. And so finally I was able to give up a lot of that. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, not saying I am, but I do know who I am in all of this. And I know who I am. I have my likes, I have my dislikes, and that is it. And my dislikes aren't judgments. They're just my dislikes. I don't really care for whatever. I'm not a big broccoli fan. I'm just not, you know, so too bad.
I mean, I love what this conversation is so rich, my friend. It's so rich
Thank you.
with incredible insight for anyone who has an even minute amount of desire to want to embody this path. It's a path that you walk on that is a true surrender to share and raise the frequency. And you know, when we do this stuff, you have to be in a state where your identity is not the equation. I always tell people, listen, erasing your personality is a mistake, in my opinion. I would suggest to not do that, because I love chocolate bonbons, driving my side by side in the desert 100 miles an hour, and I watch Netflix once in a while. That's my personality. It has zero to do with the present moment when I am of no place, person, or thing. And Lao Tzu comes in and speaks this wisdom teaching. This is the difference. You should always be able to be together and also experience all the riches of the human experience.
Absolutely.
And so when you're enriching yourself with a transmuted divinity of your favorite champagne or a piece of blue cheese, little does anyone know that your connection with your true self transmutes that into nothing but love. And the distorted opinion of others, and it actually enriches you and enriches your health, enriches your experience. It's all part of the whole picture. But so many people have been taught to identify as this one component where my name is John Smith, I'm an alcoholic. My name is John Smith,
God,
I'm a meth head. My name is John. I keep telling people addiction is a word that's used to separate you from who you are. And when you are on a path, like when you're experiencing things like wine or what do you call it? The most common thing. This is so interesting, because I've said this is a part of ancient ritual, the celebratory state of wine or alcohol for thousands of years. Yet all of a sudden now, oh, it's ominous and it's going to destroy you. And if you have a glass of wine, you're impeding your physical abilities. I mean, there is an actual movement where you're talking about the psyop. I believe there's a psyop to separate. So now they're moving towards psychonautic sort of things where, okay, well, this is also something that's ancient. It's whatever you want it to be. But the more you put this identity behind it, it will have detrimental effects on you if you believe it is detrimental. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. I'd love you to speak on this, because this is when you transmute, what Summer's doing is transmuting this into divine perfection. And she is having a very beautiful relationship with these things. They're not ominous. They're not negative. They enrich her experience. I understand that when people are like, oh, this is negative.
Yeah, and when you talk, one of the things that comes to mind is I transmuted into divine perfection or whatever. But I want to make it. I understand what you're saying, but I want to make it clear that it's not about having to do anything to transmute it into divine perfection, other than to honor yourself. Because when you honor yourself, you're honoring all of creation. When you're changing yourself into something that you're not, and you're presenting yourself falsely to the world because you think, I come here and I think San wants me to say this on his show, so I shall, then I'm not honoring you. And I'm not, because what you want is me. What the world wants anybody, what the world wants from you is you. Give the world the opportunity to respond honestly to your honest self that you're presenting in that moment, which doesn't mean it's always light and love. It's not always happy, joy. Sometimes you're being a real bitch, and that's it. And that's your truth, because that's what's happening inside of you right now.
Right.
So you're doing it not because you're, and what happens, I think, in that process, talk about transforming into the divinity, is sometimes when you're being a bitch, you're being very divine, because people are getting your honesty, and you're not doing it because you're trying to push the world away or judge them or tell them how to be or anything. You're just saying, this is who I am. This is how I feel right now. And you give them the opportunity to respond to that with their honesty and their integrity. And all of a sudden issues just dissolve away. I think sometimes like about Jesus in the marketplace, hey, enough is enough of this bullshit, and it's just, it was very real. Was it mean? Was it this? Was it that? No, he was just like, enough is enough. Come on, stop already. This is ridiculous. And he was giving his truth, and it was very, potent, I think, in that moment.
Well,
But,
I mean,
yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and that's where you get the phenomenon that in society you get this random, one-of-a-kind Uncle Bob smokes a pack of cigarettes and drinks a bottle of whiskey and lives to 110.
Yeah.
And you go, how is that possible? Well, because he was able to in basically embody this state of bliss, love, unconditional in every aspect. And he was his present moment was all he was experiencing, which was not deficient or excessive. It was just now, and he was enjoying that very essence of it. And I think that, this is the problem that people have. And I always tell people, look, you can identify with it as such. Bring it to me and say, look, I'm having an issue. I'm struggling with this. It is a tool of your own creation, and it is valuable or it is not valuable when you say it is.
Yeah.
And if it's something you enjoy, then it is something you enjoy. It's not something that, oh, well, blue cheese is, no, that's not good for you.
Well, I mean, why every time you take it into your mouth, you're taking in that frequency of oh, I shouldn't eat this. Oh, this is bad for me. Oh, this is bad for me. Oh, this, and it's going to be bad for you. It's definitely going to be bad for you because you're eating it's bad for me energy.
Right.
This is a symbol of something that you're taking into your body and you're taking it in with joy. My mother was absolutely amazing. And my parents were really, really cool people and very much encouraging of me, thank God. And my mother loved to cook, and she never used a recipe. And she would cut a tomato, and she'd take a slice and she'd go, oh, look, Sammy, look, how beautiful is that? And she'd say, isn't that beautiful? And she'd hold it up to the light and she'd say, oh, it's so beautiful. And I tell you, you eat my mom's food and you're feeling that love coming into it and stuff. And, and my dad and my mom, they loved to party. They loved having people over, music and song and dance and drink and food of all kinds. It was an explosion of love in the household. So often we had hootenannies, and my dad lived to be 91 years old. He ate and drank anything he wanted to. He ate a lot of meat. He drank cream, he drank, he'd pour Kahlua in his coffee in the morning. My dad was no falling down drunk. He loved his alcohol. He loved to sit and watch the rainstorms and drink, and it was just, and it didn't kill him. That's not what killed him, and he was just full of life to the very end. And at some point they had a botched surgery that caused congestive heart failure, is what the doctor told him. But the doctor looked at him and said, Ron, I don't understand how you're even alive. He said, because there's some marker for the heart that if it surpassed like 800, his was like 8,000, and that you would be dead. And he said, I don't understand. My dad goes, I don't know. I'm just going to go have a drink. I mean, he was just like, whatever. And he was so joyful and so full of life, to the very end. He kicked butt. He played chess online. He was a really good chess player. And he last thing he did was play a chess game online on this international site. And after he died, about 10 days later, I got this notice on his email that he was like in the top 5 or something of chess players in his age group in the world. It was like really cool, And I was like, you go, Dad, you did it,
I mean, it comes back to the simplicity where, society is attempting to separate us by saying mind, body, spirit.
Absolutely.
But the truth is, the present moment is all those things. It's now. And so your parents enriching their present moment and their love for just life and experiencing it as if they were a child, which really is how I look at reality. I wake up every day as if it's the first time I've ever experienced witnessing healing, the presence of Latsu. It's a gift. I'm always in gratitude for experiencing these things as if it's the first time I ever experienced it. And the reason I mention the transmutation is because that's what, in my opinion, I can witness that energy transform from what it may have originally been to what it becomes once you embody it through your own transmuted state. And furthermore, within Taoist alchemy, that's one of the things that we do is a part of the rite of passage is you have to transmute and move alcohol out of an alcohol bottle and put it into water. And then you have to pop the cap and drink a full bottle of alcohol within a few seconds. And if you didn't do it, you're going to have some problems. So it's
No.
not a delusion. It's a real ability, and it starts with your understanding what you desire and what you want from your experience and how you create it as a creator. And
Yeah.
so these simplistic concepts are actually realized, and they transmute into a very powerful state once you're able to cultivate and repeat these things. So this
Mhm.
is not some sort of fleeting delusion that some are
No.
talking about.
No.
This is how you live your life.
Yeah, and if people need any kind of science behind it or whatever, I was in college, and I remember seeing this video about this test that was done on a group of college students. They were uh, offered free beer, and they came into this bar, and but what they didn't know is that some of them would get beer, and some of them would get a non-alcoholic beer, and uh, and the people who got the non-alcoholic beer got drunk. So they kind of proved it, that it's all in here, it's all in the way you perceive it, and through you, and like Dr. Peebles says, through your choices and perceptions, you do indeed create your own reality. And people go, well, why would I create this reality? I hate this world and everything else. Well, you're creating a reality of a world that you hate. You can love this world equally as much as you can hate it. You create that inside of yourself, what you're feeling and how you're experiencing this moment here. Like he says, if there's bombs dropping outside in times of war, there have been many people who were having a party, playing with the children, singing songs, and not thinking about the bombs dropping, not thinking about their impending death, but thinking about the things they wanted to create in that moment. And that's what you do. And you talk about that whole thing about the transmuting of the energy of things. My dad was one who taught me this, and he talked about the swamis and the gurus and things that they used to take them and feed them a handful of LSD, and they would take it. Nothing changed. They were the same as they ever were. Didn't even affect them at all. So it's it's an amazing thing. Or like any of these people who've been in solitary confinement for years and years, and they come out, they emerge better than they were going in. Like, I forget who it was who came out with a better golf game, because he had nothing else to do but think about his golf swing and practice it in his mind in solitary confinement, and came out and had the best golf game of his life. I think he was a guy who had been kidnapped or something like that, and was confined for all those years. So he practiced his golf swing because that's where his happy place was.
Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing when you start to understand that you are the creator of your reality. And
Mhm.
this is not just conceptual. I mean, for a Taoist, it's like this symbiotic relationship between yin and yang.
Mhm.
Yin is the absorption of all colors. Yang is the emission of all colors.
Mm.
And if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, if anyone's a Mission Impossible person will understand that, is to find that center point. We call it the Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother, which is the womb to all creation. So that creates this incredible mirroring effect that then forms yin, and then yin is also a mirroring effect within this material. You exhibit yang, which is the material state. So you have now got this symbiotic relationship, and you find that center point for the divinity, the unification of those energies as one. And that always comes back to the void, the darkness that is actually not darkness, but yet it starts there. And
Yeah.
so when you get that seed of that yin yang, it becomes the what we call the diamond of perfection, and you create everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I think it gets so complicated for people, because when I went into this, I wasn't going to be wearing the particular robes or studying anything in particular. I'm completely self-taught in what I do. And I wanted to be able to just be me. And I didn't want to have to, follow anybody or anything. So, but sometimes it gets so complex. So part of the thing that I like to teach people is there's some really practical uses for this connection with this energy. So maybe, you know, I drink my champagne and it doesn't hurt me because I love it so much and everything. And that's one form of it. It's the transmutation of the energy, you know, or whatever. It can be the connection with spirit and letting them come through and speak. It can be psychic readings. It can be healing energy and all this. But it's really useful for finding your keys, because all you have to do, the keys are energy. You know, there's energy in them. Where did I put my keys? Oh my God. And then you just tear up the house and you're so angry. You're losing all this time. You're going to be late to the wedding, you know, whatever. Instead, you just stop and you go, all right, keys, where are you? And you feel the keys. You just look for the keys inside of yourself as a feeling. And you might feel confined. You might feel squished under a pillow somewhere. It's like, oh yeah, I fell asleep. I took a nap and I had my keys in my hand when I got home from shopping. And I was so tired, I fell dead asleep. And they're under my pillow in my bed. Boom, done. Problem solved, you know? And one time my daughter was probably about 18, 19 years old, and she was out and she was going to be home by midnight. And she wasn't home by midnight. And I was really concerned. And I was like, oh God, where is she? Where is she? I was worried. I was like, gonna call the police. I don't know. No. Okay, where are you, honey? It's just, you know, I just closed my eyes and just felt her. And I smelled gasoline. And I could tell from the smell of the gasoline, it was not bad. It was that she was filling the car with gas. And sure enough, she came home a few minutes later and she goes, Mom, I'm sorry I'm late, but I realized that I was almost out of gas. And so I had to go to the gas station and I filled it up. I said, I know, you know, used to drive them crazy a little bit.
Well, no, I mean, this is the power of the verification.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a repeatable thing that needs to be acquired. And, you know, you start with the basics of sensory perception, and then basically to embody it. And it's funny you say that. I mean, I literally went from one barometer to another. I was an atheist that was a bodybuilder and powerlifter that walked into meditation for the first time. I'd never meditated in my life. I stopped sound and time, and I was addicted. It happened the first time. And from that, within a whole week, I went from never experienced meditation to the following day channeling my teacher Latsu by finding classifieds, where some whack job that's been doing it 60 years was offering channeling classes through the local newspaper. And he hated my guts because big Neanderthal that looked like an overgrown ape walks in and there's a bunch of alfalfa sprout chewing, hairy armpit smelling like hippies hanging around the room going, what is this guy doing here? And I was like, I was very clear that I needed to be here. And they're like, okay, come on in. We are all non-judgment here. Yeah. The second he opened the floodgates and Latsu came in like a lightning bolt, everyone was around the room with sticks and marshmallows because I was transmitting so much energy. That's what happens. I literally go into a sauna. It is just part of the visceral experience. And this is where you get supercharged. Furthermore, I went straight into then clairvoyant stuff and then witnessing a physical healing of gangrenous flesh going back to pink and color in 40 minutes, all within 5 days. I then had a what they call a, what do you call it? These people, the new age spirit stuff, a dark night of the soul, where for 5 days straight, by the third day, I wanted to kill myself. Literally, suicide was an option. Every thought, every feeling, every emotion at once. And at the end of it, I came out of it. I finally got hold of my teacher because we had rotary phones back in those days. and he goes, my goodness, this is profound. This is what we call a breaking. I'm like, I don't care what this is. If I ever experience this again, I'm out. I don't, you know, and there was a form of psychosis because within 5 days, I'm going from crushing things, lifting obscene weight to all of a sudden, this is spirituality. I have a path. And so that's why I went down Taoism, because Latsu came to me immediately and said, this is who you have been in past lives. This is who you are right now. And you're here to teach people. I had no sense of that. And so that was where I further discovered through my being ordained in 2 lineages of Taoism. But I already had the goods before I even went to the monasteries and the monastic path, the evidence of this stuff. So this is a stuff where I tell people, you can listen to our conversation right now and be self-realized instantly. So all it takes is for you to allow yourself to experience it, and you can have a self-realization that will blow your socks off, and you will be off to the races, just as I was, just as you've been through your whole life. You've been aware of this incredible frequency that has guided you to your future. And it happens when you allow it to be. But, you know, I had the old expression, I'll try anything once. And I literally meant it. And by doing that, you come into this, and that teacher, by the way, was absolutely like, you piece of crap. For 60 years, you look like some voided out Neanderthal, and you walk in here, and you have now entered and opened a portal to a frequency I've never experienced before in my whole life. I've been teaching this stuff for 60 years. And the funny part that really, the way you validate things, like how you're sharing with the audience, I just feel into the keys, I feel into and you remember the information, you just backtrack and like deconstruct how it was, where it was in that very point is like rewinding a videotape. And the second you embody it, you will see it. And you'll go right there, and poof, there's the frequency. And you know, you channel Latsu, and then the following day I did psychic readings, and he was teaching me. It's like, this is this random stuff. Well, what the hell? I mean, at this point, you're literally seeing spirits, and you're talking this information. And I thought I was having a psychotic break, because I was hearing Latsu's voice, seeing him as he was as tangible as you. And I went from nothing to everything at once. And I was like, you know what? I'm all in at this point. All these people are telling me all this stuff. I'm experiencing a transformation at a subatomic level. What am I going to do? Let me see where I crash and burn or break or whatever it is. And I went straight to the psychic stuff. And the following day, he's like, I'll teach you this. Show me. Go on, show me. I taught you how to do it. And he's like, show me. Give me a reading. Read me. Oh, there's no way. You know, this idiot be able to do anything. This was the judgment that you and I are talking about, where people go, I'm spiritual. Well, it's virtue signaling, actually.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's like, I'm spiritual. And so he taught me this specific process. And I'm like, okay. He goes, read me. Come on, Mr. He was like so bitter that I just walked with no expectation, and then experienced it immediately.
Oh God, yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. This happens often through our path. And so he gives me these techniques, and I go, okay. He goes, give me some information. Go on. And so
read me, I dare you.
Right. And so I read him, and what came out immediately, like a child. I have no expectation. I'm not committed to anything. I go, okay. So give me the information. I'm like, okay, so what I'm getting very clearly, this entity, I'm going to call it an entity. And he goes, yeah. It's telling me that if you continue sucking the energy from your students that you have been for many years, selling their basically their divine sense to this entity that's giving you superpowers, if you stop to do that, or you continue to do what you're doing, it will take your life. And he went, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm like just sitting there, just reading it off like a menu. Okay, get up. Let's go in the other room. And I'm just like, what? And he's like, how do you know that? I'm like, I'm sorry, you told me what to do, and this information is coming through me from an energy that I don't really particularly like the look of, nor do I like the tone of, yet it's giving me this information. And he was just like, what? And then I'm like, I was more excited about, is that real? And he's like, listen, I need to talk to you about this, and I really want you not to share this with the rest of the group. And I was like, holy shit, this is real. And he's just like, stop. I just need to explain myself. And the entity said, I'll take your life. And he was shocked, and I was blown away, because that's how fast you get the information. And I mean, I went around the class, and there was psychologists and all these gurus, and some of them were getting super pissed at me because I just read the information from their field, and they'd be like, you should not have this access to this power. I'm like, listen, you're a psychologist, but I feel like what the information you're sharing with me is you're broken.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I really, to be honest with you, there was no filter right there, and I changed my direction very quickly, but it was first.
Well,
There,
no, but can I ask you a question? Because
yeah.
I get a sense about something. And so, because it's interesting, I suspect that you, before all of that, you were already very forthright. I imagine if I asked you, what does my butt look big? Yeah, it does, or something, I mean, I have the feeling you were kind of no nonsense before that. And that, so you already had that floodgate open, just different energy coming through. Does that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, oh, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
it's always in retrospect, right? So
Mhm.
once that happened, I regressed back to my near-death experience when I was 8. I was
Oh,
hit head
wow.
on by a drunk driver.
Oh
And
God.
I went straight out of my, first at 4, I was looking through my hand through walls into being able to see through things as if I'm Superman. And then
Hmm.
when I got hit when I was 8, I instantly embodied like an experience of I was dead. I got up from the side of the road and I walked towards my house to see my mother for the last time. And I fell backwards, and that's when my spirit popped out of my body. I flew around the air like Peter Pan for at least I mean, if I had a time frame, it was probably an hour or so. And I'd watch my mother run to my lifeless body, and then as they dropped my body on a slab at the hospital, I came back in.
Oh
And
wow.
wow, okay, this is
Hmm.
a whole different ball game. So you are dead on with your teachers sharing that information with you, but it didn't correlate. At that point, I was just like, I was super, in my opinion, my childhood was like a suffering of being raised by a single parent who was a radical feminist, and I was just around women all the time. I didn't know any different. I enjoyed sitting around a conversation of philosophy and academic types that were sharing a bottle of wine, and I'm there, this little kid, having conversations with 40-year-old women that are trying to embody this new world order and empower themselves as individuals, and not just some washer that is the Stepford wife in the background. Now, they wanted their own individual state known for the rest of the world. And that was sort of like a revolution at that time back in the
Hmm.
70s. And so, it was an interesting experience. And I think that I know that through Lao-Tzu, that yin frequency was so potent that instantly gave me the access to all the intuitive states that most people find a little bit more.
Oh, and
uh,
that's beautiful. I love it because you were talking with a bunch of women, and women are extremely empathic and and very intuitive, and they were letting it all hang out there while they're drinking their wine and everything, and talking philosophically about what was happening, and the transition that was going on during that women's movement, and everything was really very difficult, where women were trying to find themselves and still be feminine without turning into men, basically, you know. And but I can imagine you sitting there and feeling all of that, and learning about intuition, learning about empathy, learning. How beautiful is that? It's so funny because your childhood echoes mine. I mean, it's the same. We had so many gatherings of people. It was during the war, Vietnam War, lots of deep conversations about the war, draft evaders who were friends of ours, people who were burning their draft cards and trying to avoid things. And I was intuiting and feeling into the war scene and stuff, and learning about death at a very, very young age. And it terrified me until I learned that there is no death, and that's nothing to fear there. But I too had an out of body a near-death experience too. But nothing quite like yours. Was pretty remarkable. But I think it's so cool. I mean, what a blessing, what a
well,
blessing of that environment that you grew up in.
well, this is what happens to us, right? And that's why your incredible, insight and story of how you're able to embody and basically enrich this space with your wisdom teaching is something that it's a phenomenon that can be experienced by anyone if they are able to intune it. Yes, we have a more defined definition of our path, but so many people are looking, but they don't get their connection. They don't get the dialogue to the monologue. And when I say that, with my relationship with my teachers, I teach, I channel Letsu, but I have 171 different teachers that are all immortals within the Taoist lineage. And I channel them into this material state. Yet this is a dialogue that I'm having with the monologue. They are not a representation of the primordial mother, which is that monologue, that pure source. Someone might call it the Akashic Records, holds a mente, source, Tao, Buddha, God. That's evidence. And the way that you describe the evidence and how powerful your teaching is being able to verify it yourself. It's like, oh, let's do something benign. And I think a lot of people find that easy, where I'm like, why don't we start with something simple? And they're like, okay, well, what? Parking ferry. And they're like, what do you mean the parking ferry? What is the parking ferry? Like,
right.
You have no investment in that. So you're easily able to remove yourself from the equation. So let's just use the example of you're driving to the local supermarket with your loved ones, but you're quietly telling yourself, I'm going to find a parking space at the front of the store. You're not sharing it with the rest of the car. You're just quietly I've now put this intention into the perfection we call perfection manifest, the unified state. And I'm now creating that parking space. And they do it the first time. They go, oh, well, listen, Jifu, I got in there, and, of course it's going to, the logic in my mind is there's always going to be a parking space at the front because people are coming and leaving. And I'm like, okay, well, you can justify that in your mind.
Yeah.
Now, when you've done it for the 47th time, are you going to start listening?
Well, and the other part of that is for people to understand that out of those 47 times, could have been, 30 of those times were luck, and 17 of them, if my math is correct here, was you putting it out there to the universe that I want a parking space in front. And the thing that I try to teach people to understand is to pick up, learn the nuances of that language. Those times that it was just luck, basically, as opposed to you putting it out there that you wanted that parking space. What was the difference that you felt in you? You can feel this alignment with something. I remember, I had a house in Oak Creek Valley out here. My neighbor had one of those big old satellite dishes, huge, and it wasn't being used anymore, of course. It was the only thing that I could see out my kitchen window, and it was just such an eyesore, but I thought, whatever, it's fine. I mean, I don't get really freaked out or upset about those things and everything. But one morning, about 4 years later, I was in the kitchen and I'm drinking my coffee and I'm just kind of wistfully looking out the window, and I'm looking at the thing. I'm like, God, that thing is it's so freaking ugly. They should at least hang something on it, turn it into an art piece or something. And I thought, it'd be great if they would just dismantle it and get rid of it. And I walked away. 3 hours later, it was being dismantled and taken away. I was like, whoa. But when I look back at that, I had no attachment to it. I knew what I wanted. It was that, but I wasn't attached to the outcome of it. It was like, I just basically just wistfully put it out there to the universe. And so when you learn the nuances of that language of the heart, basically, is where you can really start to understand, even emotions. Is this me or is this somebody else? Am I picking up on myself or am I picking up on my neighbor's crap?
Yeah.
And you'll know, and you go, oh, that's definitely not me, because this is not in alignment with what I've been doing right now. And you say, okay, then I don't need to take that on and basically send it back to its rightful owner. So it's when you learn that sort of language of the heart, it really it gives you it gives you so much. I don't even like to use the word power because I don't even think that's necessary, but it gives you clarity. Let's say that.
A knowing.
And knowing of how to live life without really having to look so hard and figure it out. It's like, some days I'll go, well, I want to go to Safeway, to the grocery store in Sedona, and something's going, don't go. Nope. And I don't know why. And I go, well, okay, but I still need to get a tomato. Well, then go over to this store. And it's like, oh, okay. And so I go with that, counter to maybe what I desire, which is I'd love to drive to Sedona today. It's a beautiful day, I have all these excuses as to why. But I trust that still small voice within me that says, no, Go over here and get your tomato. So I do that, and I bump into somebody that I haven't seen in years. Maybe it's your soulmate, maybe it's, who knows, but it's like this beautiful encounter. Or maybe I was there just in the nick of time to pull somebody out of the way of a car that was about to hit them. You just don't really know, and you don't have to know, but when you get there, you'll know. And it's a remarkable thing, and you realize how guided we really are by the energy of the universe when you surrender into it. It's sort of like when you surrender into the ocean or something. You eventually, because when I grew up in California, we'd go to the beach, and I'd freak out when a wave would crash over me, and they're like, stop freaking out and surrender to it, and it will bring you back to the surface. And it does. And so you find that once you just calm down, it tumbles you up to the surface. And that's life. That's what I think happens in life as well. So, it's such a, it takes, I have to also say, it takes courage. People can hear people like us who, I think I know that I was very blessed by the childhood that I had, and the people around me who taught me, just human beings teaching me that it's okay to be me, and that I'm not crazy, and didn't lock me up, and encouraged me in this mystical journey. And so I know that for a lot of people who've been told since they were little that they shouldn't have imaginary friends, and that it's just your imagination. And then the next thing you know, your mom and dad are saying, oh, well, when you say I'm bored, and they go, well, use your imagination. Well, which is it? Use your imagination, or it's just my imagination, I know it's scary. It's scary to jump off that cliff, but you can do it in little increments, just like, like you're saying, San, just starting with a parking space and seeing what happens there and learning the language. So it's a great way to live life, and sometimes very frustrating too. It can cause a lot of nutsiness too, because you can feel into other people's lives and go, oh God, if they would only.
Right. I mean, it's as you probably teach others, it's a repeatable experience once you start to identify that the currency of this material state is a polarizing effect of electromagnetism. That electromagnetism is the creation of energy. The energy is vibratory, it's frequential, and if met with a resonance, you can hold it and then create from that whatever it is that you choose. And so I sort of like used a deconstruction of what you and I are speaking of as just moving out of the way. Yet once you really feel into it, as you put it, it's so powerful. You feel into it, you're able to experience that resonance, then it becomes realized. And that is a kind of a repeatable thing that's so important. I think that, a lot of my parapsychologists, physicists type of friends, or furthermore, magicians of real magic would define this sort of precognitive states of awareness. Furthermore, they've sort of, I don't like diluting it, but there's an identification we call an idiomotor response, which is sort of the divinity transmitting through you. And you would find it more within like pendulums, dowsing forks, tarot cards, Ouija boards. These are all evidence that this transmission is coming through you, and you are getting a response. And how you decipher that would come in, the form of remote viewing, where you're now using what they call an ideogram to have your own language. Where now that language is very clearly. Now, of course, what Summer and I are speaking of is a far more refined development, where you're being able to clearly have a dialogue with an energy frequency that is giving you said evidence in this material that is beyond the mind. It's beyond. It's like you're getting evidence right now that's verifiable that this is really happening. This is not just like learning a technique or developing this resonance. It's on a whole nother level. And so there's a progression to that. And, but the ideomotor, it's kind of like when you talk about the keys, it has a frequency. I do this a lot with people. It's like, okay, I'm following your mind. And they're like, what? Let's go down to the strip, the MGM Grand. Here's a quarter. Take a quarter, drop it anywhere in the hotel. And they're like, okay. Then they come back, and this is a 5,000 room hotel, right? It's like huge. I'm like, I'm going to use your admission, your transmission to show me where that coin is. They're like,
Right.
bullshit. Yeah. I'm just feeling your transmission. This is what we call body dowsing, where you're now being able to identify vortices, grids, portals, power centers. This is just part of a refinement that, Summer has been sharing with us through this whole conversation, is this mastery of the inner, feeling into the energy. Everything has a frequency.
Everything.
It has this vibratory state. And once you refine your skills to be able to translate that into evidence of information, wow! All of a sudden, you get off to the races. You're seeing this incredible evidence, and it has to be repeatable. It's like that's the delusion where if it's transitory and you get this hit, oh, I saw my grandma, I had a vivid dream, I have a premonition, and it happens once. Most people are mesmerized by that, and they chase it, what I call the spiritual dragon. They chase it for the rest of their life, and then a teacher like yourself or myself, they're forever looking for this thing,
chasing their tail. Yep, exactly. Oh my gosh, yes. Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting because, when my daughters were little, I just wrote an article about this actually. I would play this game with them. I took their Barbie doll and I would hide it and I'd say, now you have to find it. And they were like, how do we do that? And I said, close your eyes and look for her in your mind. And they would do it. And at first they would, look around the house looking for it. But then they got very quickly very good at closing their eyes and seeing where Barbie was. And it was no longer about who found her first. It was about who got there first to get her, because they both saw her and took off like a bandit and would grab the Barbie, and they used it for getting answers to their test questions at school and stuff. They said, my daughter years later told me she dropped her pencil and said, Spirit, what's the answer to such and so? and she'd listen for the answer, get it, write it down, and it was right. So
I mean, this
really
this is so tangible what we teach, because I have a friend of mine who's a neuroscientist, and I generally steer away from people that are blinders and one. If you come from biology, psychology, numerology, you are limited as best. If we just go, hey, look, we're just a specialist in one facet of clairvoyance, you become very limited. You kind of just run around and you're like, oh, yes, I can see your aura, or I can speak to dead people, instead of allowing yourself to expand to all things at one, which is what we're speaking of. So, he's studying these autistic kids that are getting what they call, random hits, like precognitive choices, where normally you give someone 4 choices and you got a 25% chance of getting it right. And most people that want to show exhibits of ESP will pick, one, and like, oh, I had 20 questions and I got 5 of them right, that, I had a 25% chance of getting. Well, he'll give these kids not even 4 options. He'll just give them random, like, questions of anything, and 400 out of 400 times they get it right. And they're like talking about, oh, I'm hanging out with my friends in this space, and all these kids are coming together in that space of knowing, and they're literally showing evidence of this paranormal, supernatural state that is, part of the experience. But this is what we teach. This is what we know. And then he's putting it on this podcast called Telepathy Tapes or something like that. I don't know whether you heard of that. But yeah, I wasn't too familiar, but I found out it was like a super popular podcast that at one point was more popular than Joe Rogan's, which I found interesting. I'm like, well, thanks for telling me now. It took you a while. You've been doing this for a while. And he's like, but this is a phenomenon. I'm not a big fan of measuring this stuff. When someone goes, show me, I'll show you. But I don't need you to go, well, we need to do it at this place or time. Like, I get people coming to me all day long. Grandma's in a coma. She's going to die. And I'll talk with grandma and I'll be like, look, grandma doesn't want to die, but she wants you to know that she wants a relationship with you. If you want to invest in that relationship and show her the same amount of love, she will be here. And they're like, oh, of course, I don't want to. Next minute, vitals regulated. The next day, the doctor's like, this person came out from a coma. What in Tao's name has happened? All I did was become the mediator, between grandma and the loved one. And,
Mm-hmm.
in some situations, these people have underlying agendas that are not as great as you would seem. They would rather their loved ones to be dead, but they're virtue signaling with the idea, well, I did my best. I went to this guy that's supposedly a guru that helps with people. Now, I do this stuff all the time. I've seen so many miracles over 40 years that I could probably write a book on it. It's so outrageous. And you too. This is the type of stuff that we experience. This is super normal. It's not supernatural. And
I love that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. It's super normal. This is this is the true creator. This is it.
That's really true. Very true. There's when you realize that you're one with everything, there's no separation. It's really interesting. Like our bodies, what are we, 80% water or something like that. And science says, well, certain things are vibrating at a certain rate, and that's why they appear to us or feel to us as being solid, right? But when you come to understand that you are everything, then one of the things I learned was you could actually walk through walls if you wanted to, like how you were talking about earlier when you were younger and you saw the walls would open up and you could see through them and things like that. Well, if you can bring your vibration to the same vibration as the wall and become that wall, then you can walk through it. Then you can become the wall and walk through it. It's not something that, there's the barriers, borders, and boundaries that we think are real between us. They are not. Oh God, I just remembered this. Years ago, I got a phone call from this gal in California, and I was here in Arizona. I had been sitting at my desk and I was tired, I guess, and I just zoned out, but my eyes were open. And I don't know how long I was like that, but all of a sudden I went, whoa, what just happened? What was I doing? And the phone rang, and I picked up the phone, old-fashioned phone, and she said, Summer, you there? I said, where? And she said, where are you? I said, I'm in Arizona, at home. She goes, oh my God. She said, well, you just came out of my closet, sat down on my bed, and we just had a conversation for about an hour. And I was like, wow. And she said, as tangible as if you were here. And I said, well, I zoned out and I didn't know how long it was, but I said, so I must have, I guess there's a word for it called translate, where you take your body with you, I guess, supposedly. That's just something that was done back in the spiritualism movement days. So you start learning about this fact that you're one with everything, and there is really no separation, and time and space are not real, and all of a sudden there's all this magic that can happen. And I have one other story I just wanted to share, because this also, I popped in this memory. This was extraordinary. I mean, I don't even think I was channeling yet at this point, but I was definitely exploring, and I was definitely having mystical experiences all the time. But I was late to pick up my daughter from kindergarten, and I drove into the parking lot of an old stick shift car that was my dad's car I was borrowing, and I came into the parking lot way too fast, and there was only one parking space, and I had to turn really, really, really sharp to get in there, and I would come whipping around way too fast, and I'm going to hit the car next to me. And I mean, there's no way out of this, right? And I'm thinking, all these thoughts are going through my head. No, this can't happen, because this is my dad's car. And I just didn't want the hassle of it. I mean, simultaneously, I don't know how many thoughts exploded in my head of no, it can't happen because of all these reasons. And I kid you not, my car goes, I'm turning my car into this tight space. The car next to me, it's as if you're watching like a cartoon where, the cartoon character can, bloop into something else or whatever. The corner of that car just lifted up like it was lifting up its skirt going, oh, it's okay, you can pass through. And my car passed right through that, back into that car next to me. And I sat there and I just laughed, and I thought, That was so cool. I mean, it was so amazing, but something in me was so in alignment with no, no, no. And so the car goes, oh, okay, nope, I don't want to be hit either, you know. And it was really awesome.
Well, I mean, this constantly is recognition and remembrance. So
Hmm.
powerful that
Hmm.
we're able to access this state and then transmute it. Within
Yeah.
Taoism, we call it immortality crystallized into the material.
Mm.
We're bringing, which would be diluted to your unified state of perfection, materialized as a manifestation, magic, healing, real evidence of that experience that you're having right now. It's not transitory, it's a permanent, it's a repeatable experience that you can verify. This is
Yeah.
the power of it. I mean, that's what's so powerful about your teaching and your connection with your teacher, is that people are able to verify this experience. And
Mhm.
it's so healing. It returns them to whole. It makes them realize that what's looking back at them is perfection, and they are whole now
Mm.
because they had this intuitive direction to get to your front door, to be in your presence, and then you verified it for them, which made them completely whole and grounded and expressing as that through your information, through
I
that experience.
Yeah, through it, but I think they verify it for themselves. They have to acknowledge what's within them in order for anything to work. That Dr. Peebles shares, or that I share, or that anybody shares. We have to be courageous enough to take it and to apply it in our lives, and we have to be aware enough that when it strikes that chord of yes inside of us, that we acknowledge it and we accept it. You know, I often say, well, like my chiropractor says, I say, oh, you do such a great job, thank you so much, you really helped me heal. And he goes, I don't do anything, I just push bones around. He said, you're doing it, and he always puts it back on, you're doing this for yourself. You're the one who chose to come here. I push the bones around, but you're the one who's in charge of what happens after that. It's just, and that's kind of the way I think of it with any of the kind of teachings and things too. It's not, there's no magic fix for anybody. It all starts within you. I mean, no matter what, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
Just
return.
just like the grandma who needed that particular healing with her
Yeah,
granddaughter or whoever,
yeah,
and then she could pop awake and be fine. But it was
yeah.
like, I need this to be healed first, and then I'll
Oh,
come back.
yeah. I mean, I mean, I've been at the bedside of hundreds of people that have transitioned, but
Hmm.
it's very common for me to be flown into a situation where someone's in a coma, and I'll just stand there with the loved ones and teach them how to move the energy, and the nurses are like, he had a fever, it was out of control, his vitals were crazy, and you're just waving your hands around, and all of a sudden it's gone. And I
Hmm.
listen, I'm just teaching them how to embody that energy. I mean, they're just like blown away. And, one situation comes to my mind where this one guy was in a coma, complications of, a terminal disease. And, the father was 3 weeks away from being able to get back to America from another part of the world.
Hmm.
And I just sat by and I said, I don't need to be there. No, we need you there. And so they paid me to hang out for 3 weeks, and I had a conversation with their son, which would seemingly be impossible, but I was, he's like, okay, well, I'll hang around for dad, and we'll make this right if you can teach my sister how to regulate my energy.
Hmm.
Great. And of course I did that. The second the dad walked in to the room, he gave the son a hug, and beep. I mean, it's just that sort of like frequential state, but it's all I'm doing is holding a resonance. I'm
Yeah.
holding resonance, and then you're remembering. So it's a jigsaw puzzle. So the second someone faces you, they remember to be whole. And
Hmm.
that is part of this being an ambassador to this mastery, is to help people remember themselves, which refers back to what you just said a few moments ago, is that remembrance is nothing more than frequential resonance.
Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about all of that with the transition and stuff. And I was caregiving my mom and dad for 12 years, and at various stages. And they were very rarely were they totally bedridden and things like that. But my dad was he was frustrating. He was a television director, and so he wanted, and after my mom died, he wanted to direct my life around him. He wanted it to revolve around him in many ways. And he was a great guy. He was a great character. We had a lot of fun together and everything. But it seemed like he was always dying. He was almost going to die. Oh no, he didn't die. No, he's going to die. No, he didn't die. And he's always like, he called me from the hospital one time. I'm dying. I'm in the hospital. I'm dying. You got to, okay, Dad, and I race over there, cancel everything. And he's sitting up eating Jello. And I'm like, what the fuck, Dad? You're not dead. And this went on and on for years with him. And towards the end, he was really, visibly, there was some pain going on, but he was hanging on. And I knew, as much as my dad knew a lot about a lot of things and the afterlife and all of that, I could tell he was afraid to let go. There was a little part of him that was still questioning. So in that process, in his journey, when he started his transition, I knew this was it. So I was, caregiving him and doing what they told me to do. I don't know if it's the right thing or not, but, doing the morphine and things to keep him out of pain. And he's in bed, and he goes, it's like December and 20th. And he said, I'm going to die on my birthday. And he said, most people die on their birthday. And I go, that's 5 months from now, Dad. I said, no fucking way. I said, I'm not going to sit here and watch you suffer for 5 months the way that you are, in all this pain and everything else, for 5 months. I said, this is ridiculous. And I said, and by the way, I said, when you leave your body eventually, I said, that's your birthday over there to the other side. And he goes, it is? I said, yeah, of course, Dad. I said, you're being birthed to the other side. He goes, oh. So next day, he's definitely on his way out. And I said, hey, Daddy. I said, today, I just had this feeling to do this. I said, today is your birthday. It is? I said, yes, it is, Daddy. And I sang happy birthday to him. And he just his eyes were so big. He was like a little child, in bed. And then my mom, I felt her come to my right shoulder. She puts her hand on my shoulder, and I telepathically, hi, Mommy. And she goes, hi, honey. And I said, it's time, isn't it? She said, yes, I'm here to get him. And he pops awake after he's out again with his eyes closed and everything. He pops awake, looks over my shoulder, and he mouths, so beautiful, so beautiful. I said, you see Mommy? He said, yes. I said, she's here to bring you home. And still he didn't go. So finally, it dragged on for a good part of the day. He fell out of bed. Paramedics had to come put him into a hospital bed in the house, because he always refused to be in the hospital bed. And he was now comatose. And I thought, my mom and dad played music together. They loved music, and they recorded a lot of music. I thought, I know what I can do. I'm gonna play my dad's music for him, because I know the hearing is the last thing that goes, is what I've heard. So I thought, oh, but it's not on my phone. So I went to my computer in the back of the house, and I was gonna just quickly download it onto my phone. I come back into the living room where he's in the bed, and he died. He died when I walked out of the room. I'm like, oh my God. Well, so I start playing the music anyway. And then it sounded so crappy. I said, oh, my dad would not like that. We owned 2 recording studios. That was not up to my dad's standards. I was like, he wouldn't like that. So there was one of these Alexa devices, that people have that, hey, Alexa, you're going to do this for me, and da-da-da-da. Well, he had one of those, and he loved it, and he used to play music on it, ask it to play music and stuff. But it hadn't been touched in 2 months. It was off. It was, because he just wasn't able to use it anymore. So it had just been sitting there off for 2 months. I turn around, I look in the kitchen, and it's on. And there's a picture of my mom and dad on it. I actually took a picture of it. And it's one of the songs that my mom had written for my dad, Hopeless Romantics. And I look at this thing, I'm like, it's on. And I thought, I wonder if Alexa will know my voice. And I said, Alexa, play Hopeless Romantics. Because I thought, how did that, that get on there? And it starts playing. And my dad loved the quality of the sound from this device. And then I look out in the living room, and they had a really big living room, and where my dad was. And I look, and I see my mom and dad holographically dancing, twirling, because it's sort of like a waltz song, and it's such a beautiful song. And they're dancing and twirling, and I'm watching, and they twirled all around me, and then they went and just took off. Well, I guess it was a couple days later, I was like, I blow drying my hair, and I go, Mom, why did Daddy die when I left the room? And I hear, oh, Summy, she said, he was so stubborn. She said, when you left the room, I said, Ron, Summy's getting our music and is going to play it for us, and I want to dance. And she said she reached and grabbed him by the hand and pulled him out of the body. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. It was so amazing. So many things like that happened around his death. I even was visited before he died. I was visited by death. I saw death. I was, again, blow drying my hair in the back of the house where I was living. And there was a closet, and I see this dark figure. It's bright. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm blow drying my hair. I'm not looking for this. And I thought, oh, it must be Daddy. And I look over, and it's like, no, but it's about the same shape and size as Daddy, but he's pitch black, dark black. But I can see him as tangibly as I can see you. And I look, and I telepathically, like, hello, and I hear, hello, I'm here to get your father. And I said, oh. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at death. But I want to say that the amazing thing about that was I looked at this being, and I felt this love and warmth that was so tangible and so beautiful. It just was overwhelming, and I know a lot of people would be scared, like, oh my God, he was in black, it must be the devil or Satan. It's like, no, this was an amazing being of love and light and beauty. And it was just like, wow. And then I go back to blow drying my hair. And then I thought, I turn back, I look at him, he's still there. I said, you're here for my dad, right? And he goes, and he actually laughed and said, yes, I'm here for your dad. And it was just a real tangible moment. And it was amazing. And then it was just shortly after that, I went out to check on my dad, and sure enough, it was getting to be time. So I don't know why I just went on and shared that, but I did.
No, I think, further more verification of these incredible experiences that we are, witnessing constantly. Mm-hmm. I think, my goodness, today has been an incredible conversation, just refreshing our own self-realized state. And I want this to be more often. I would love you to come back on the show and have more conversations like this, because it's so powerful.
I appreciate it so much. It's just so nice. I don't get a lot of opportunities to talk to somebody who gets a lot of these things the same way as I do. So I really appreciate it. I have wonderful friends who do have a lot of experiences, and I'm not without that, but it's like, hey, what a cool thing to have a little platform to yap about it for a bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was surprising too when I got Paul Selig on. You'll have to look him up.
Yeah, I'm going to look him up. I know his name. I do.
Yeah, he was kind of like a little refreshed too. He had no idea. Well, I think a lot of people, unlike yourself and myself, I don't have a publicist, but a lot of people get invitations and they don't really know who it's from. They're just like, oh, okay, it's on my schedule, let me sit down. So he was pleasantly surprised talking to someone that was, experiencing similar things to himself, that we could share and talk about and really be able to validate these experiences, because
it's fun.
It is a lot of fun. And I have just been blown away by your frequency today, which is just your fault. It's just who you are, and it will present itself in all different types of amplitudes with your teachers as they speak more succinctly through you at any given moment. And this has been absolutely profound, and I'm very grateful to have you as a friend. And I feel like we're just remembering our bond, and we'll continue to develop that. And I look forward to having you back on the channel so we can go deeper
Love
into
to.
conversations.
Yeah.
I am going to put all your social sphere and interweb points of contact under this podcast. I want people to go out and find you and do the normal rhetoric. My students, disciples, 126 is subscribers. Everyone go out and share with Summer what she is experiencing and transmitting through her wisdom teaching. And furthermore, do you offer one-on-one?
I do consultations and trance coaching, but I'm not doing private sessions right now. I do.
Okay.
I do messages, Dr. Peebles, that I channel, Dr. Peebles,
Yeah.
and they're usually messages that pertain to the times or whatever it is that he decides he wants to talk about. He can go on and on and on about stuff, and it's very beautiful. He says it's not about the words we speak; it's about the energy we push around.
Yes, I agree, my dear friend. This has been amazing. One last question: what is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Oh, whatever it is for you. I mean, for me, I think love. I mean, love is the answer to everything. Strongest, powerful force in the universe. I mean, it's at the root of everything, and it's ever expansive, and there's always more to learn about it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Again, I've done these hundreds of podcasts, never got the same answer as I should not.
Yeah.
Always, it's an individualized, unified perfection. Another facet of the diamond. We're all sitting at the same table, looking at this experience, experiencing this as another facet and perfection. So I want to thank you so very much for sharing your time with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for sharing your time.
And I'm very grateful for you. I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing. It's true. I mean, here's the thing. People will feel, anyone that's even trained minuscule amount of sensory perception will feel the bond and the unity that we experienced here today. It's very, very powerful.
Thank you.
What you're putting out is just so, I mean, you had me at hello. That's it. I mean,
thank you. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. I love that. That was wild.
Very, very grateful for you. And I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today.
Absolutely.
I'm your host and seafood Taoist Master San Qing, and we'll see you on the next one, guys.